All right, moving on, new business, consideration action on intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Redevelopment Agency and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
This allows us to complete our bond, our COPS refinancing, and Bill Camp is here with Raymond James with some very, very good news on the numbers, and I'd like him to hand out his report and go over it as quickly as he could. And I will say that the URA met prior to this meeting and adopted both the bond resolution and their part of the intergovernmental agreement.
All right, thanks, sir. The existing term of the lease, the Series 2003 lease, is July 1, 2023. We kept the same payments and the same final maturity date. If you look at this first page, we actually locked in your interest rate on Friday by action of the URA and the City Council tonight. We can proceed forward with validation, and we plan to close the transaction May the 9th. Again, our payments are going to stay the same as your existing obligations. We're not extending the final maturity. And our interest rate is locked, a fixed rate for the term of the bonds at 1.55%. Page 2. The city is going to lower its payments by about $113,000 a year. And the net present value, that's our main savings figure. You're going to use some of your funds available from the 2003 transaction, a reserve fund, using that to pay down the debt. We're going to use some money that the city has already set aside to make the July 1 payment. And so when we calculate the savings less those transfers, you have a present value benefit of $464,000. That's about 4 times the amount of money that we would tell you is worth pursuing. That's a big savings number. 11%, almost 11% PV. Page 3. This is confusing, but we're doing 2 things with your money. We're making an early payment that's due to those old leaseholders July 1, 2013, and then we're going to call or pay off early the principal maturing 14 through 23. So as of July 1, that old lease ceases to exist, and legally speaking, it ceases to exist when you've moved the money over on May the 9th. Page 4. This shows you the top of the page is your sources of funds, those 3 different pots of money. Most of this is coming from the 2013 transaction. And cost of issuance associated with this transaction. We changed up a little bit on you. We pursued a private placement transaction first, which is pretty normal course of business. I've been showing you estimated costs based on a publicly offered transaction. So we have avoided a few things like a rating, like an official statement, etc. So we actually made out better on rate and costs. Page 5. This shows you each individual payment that we'll be making every 6 months. And so your annual total there about $381,000 a year. Again, we're lowering the annual total by about $113,000. And then page 6. This is just a summary of where rates are right now. That red line is your current market yield curve. And I just throw this in here to show you rates are either at the bottom or near to the bottom as we price right now. Your bond issue is callable at any time. It can be prepaid. If rates went lower, in theory, we could refinance, but I think that's just a good option to have. I don't foresee us refinancing that. As Mr. Sanders said, if we can refinance this at some point, we're all in big trouble. So. But that's the summary, $464,000.
Questions from Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Butch, were these the numbers, did we use these figures in our budget, in our fiscal year 2014 projections?
Actually, these are a little better. And I want to thank Bill and Blake Sharpton, the bond counsel, Tony for working on it, and you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful job.
Thank y'all.
And y'all can give yourselves a pat on the back too, because we're a good credit.
That's exactly.
Hamilton State was very aggressive and benefited us greatly. So, thank you.
Consideration action on approval of downtown development authority boundary expansion.
Yeah, basically what we're doing is, I think I showed you this map, y'all got a copy of it at the last work session. We are extending, DD is asked to extend their limit, there's the boundary to extend all down 124, because basically that's where all our merchants are. That's basically where Main Street is, or the downtown is, because it could be considered part of our downtown. So they're asking to expand that, which will help them bring in people, merchants from that area, and get them involved in the DDA, and hopefully offer them benefits from being with the DDA.
It looks like we went up 78 a little bit.
Just a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
South side.
The expansion on 78 includes the neighborhood, Cambridge neighborhood. Is there a reason for that? Why you
No,
include
there's
the
no reason for
neighborhood?
that. There's no reason for that.
Have you spoken to any of the residents in that neighborhood?
No, I think we could take, I don't know why that was put in there. It should be just a retail space. We just need to amend that and take that out.
Any other questions on the DDA expansions? And so this just needs a vote of approval? That's my place. Consideration action on agreement with Gwinnett County Tax Commissioner for billing and collecting of property taxes and stormwater fees.
These are the two annual contracts which allow us to receive the benefits of their collections. Our billing goes on their normal bills, and we receive somewhere 98–99% collection. And compared to what I have seen in the past, these are very fair numbers. Alyssa, I know you've been involved with it every year. And actually, they went down a little bit this year.
And so I know that Commissioner Steele had mentioned needing to renegotiate our property tax collection, but overall, we're not paying anything. There's no negative for this that we've gotten through the renegotiation. Anybody have any questions? D, consideration action on intergovernmental agreement with Gwinnett County for the use of election equipment.
That's just for the memory cards. They go in the optical scan machine. We've been borrowing theirs for years. So it's the same thing we've always done in the past. It's just they now have instituted this agreement. I think it started last year, actually.
And is it possible to get a scan machine to do early voting with?
I would need to check into that. Someone else brought it up. I would need to check in. I don't know how the laws would apply to that, how it works. So.
How do y'all do it now?
Everything's done, sealed.
Manually?
Yeah,
With
everything's
the
put in
form?
the envelopes and locked away.
I believe Lawrenceville does theirs with a scanner, and they do it like an absentee ballot, and they just count them with absentee ballots.
I think they're talking about, No,
Now
when they're
when
talking about
they
just
come in,
running
they
it
go
through
into
the
a room
machine.
with just the
Yeah.
poll worker or whoever, and so it's
Right.
just the person and the poll worker, and they leave the ballot there. So if we could either do a machine, or if there's a box, they
they're
can
wanting
drop
to
it
run
in,
it
so
through
you're
the
not
machine
handing
and
it
add
Yeah,
out.
you can't do that.
Or I'm saying, or a box, they drop it in, but now it's just handing it to an individual, and so
Yeah.
there's a
And then we
concern
lock
about
them.
them.
They're all sealed. They don't crack them
Right.
open until
I
election
understand, but
day.
there's some concerns about, you're going into a room with just you and one other person, and you're handing it to
No,
an
there's
individual.
usually at least two, and but there'll be three now, so.
Procedurally,
Yeah.
you know, they guide how the early voting is done. I mean, there are some safeguards there to make sure they're safe. But you couldn't run it through the machine. They won't let you do that. That's something that's not allowed. They wait and crack open the absentees with the early voting the day of the election.
Where are they locked up at?
In the vault. There's only.
Is there a box in the vault they go into, or are they just in the vault? I mean, I'm
There's
saying, is there a
vault.
box we could pull out that people could see us putting them into a box?
A locked box.
Mhm.
I don't know that we have one big enough. Our early voting now was well over 400 people last, and I don't know that we have a box large enough. I'm sure if that's a concern, we could probably find it.
Anybody else have questions about that? Nomination and confirmation of Kirk Weiss to the Snellville Public Arts Commission. Does anybody have any questions about Mr. Weiss? Nomination to the Parks and Rec Board. You all received the resignation of Ms. Steele, and so you should receive the application for Adam. He has been involved in our park system through the soccer program for quite a while. He has 5 kids, and so besides being involved in the soccer program, he uses the park system frequently. Anybody have a question about his application? Okay, resolution adopting official colors for the city of Snellville. I'm withdrawing this tonight and gonna put it back on the next council meeting. I contacted Brookwood and South Gwinnett. Brookwood gave me the PMS number. Their gold is Vegas gold. South Gwinnett, it was not so easy. Eric said it was indigo gold. Coach Bourne said it was indigo blue. Coach Bourne said it was navy blue, and the elementary school said it was royal blue. I called Action Awards, and I called Titan Sports, who does the spirit wear for the schools, and they said that every coach has a different shade of blue that they use over there. So their real color is reflex blue, but there seem to be 3 different PMS numbers that are different shades of that blue. So I've sent y'all a PMS chart, and one that is called Pantone, Pantone. It seems to be closest to it. Say it again? Pantone.
Yeah.
Pantone,
the company.
Do what?
Pantone, the company.
It said Pantone blue next to
Well,
it.
maybe they're. Oh, it's Pantone blue.
Well,
Yeah.
the PMS colors are all Pantone colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Well,
PMS number?
it's PMS 2768. Or there's PMS 2736C, which was ultra blue, or PMS 2082C, which was just blue. They're all different types of reflex blue, so I was going to let y'all decide which ones you like best, if you wanna give me your input, and we'll put it back on for the next council meeting. I did go onto South's football website and use Photoshop to capture the blues in their jerseys and got the hex numbers for those. Those hex numbers seem to be closest to the 2768 number. I learned way more about hex numbers and PMS numbers than I ever wanted to know.
I have a chart if you want it.
I emailed council a chart, so
Okay.
they should have gotten it, that where they can compare them. So, if you will email me your votes and your thoughts, like I said, Brookwood is Vegas gold, we're gonna keep it at that, but South has all different shades of blue. All right, work session agenda, Downtown Development Authority, anything more we need to say on that? No? Prices to be displayed on artwork in the community room. This was discussed at the last art commission meeting. Apparently, this was something we talked about when we first started the Art on the Wall in City Hall program. And there were some legal issues as to whether the city can promote actual work of the artist, or whether it needs to be confidential, so we don't put any prices on there now. So if we could look into the legalities of that, whether we can just put them, not necessarily sell the artwork, but put them on the paintings, or whether we can maybe put a list at the receptionist's desk.
Yeah, I think a list would be better, as soon as you put numbers up on the art, or you're selling it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we had talked about before, just maybe putting letters on the paintings, and then a list, and they can go and get a copy of the list if they want. Anybody else have any input into that?
I think one of the things they said is that the library, the county libraries, I don't know this to be true or not, but we brought up that at the county libraries and at the old courthouse in Lawrenceville, when they have art exhibits, when they hang in there, the prices are there, and that's what brought it up here. But
And I know at the
Taking care of
courthouse, though, they're actually renting the
They are.
courthouse out, and
Yeah.
so there's
The
not the
library would be
county
more-
doing it, yeah.
It'd be more the libraries are doing it.
Performance audit.
An update on the performance audit. We have received a second draft from Malik. It is better, it's more in-depth. I have suggested a few changes to him, and as soon as we agree upon that wording, and the wording would make it clearer as far as the action that we could and need to take, I will get that to you, and we can have that discussion.
I had asked for this to be on the work session tonight. We had our budget meetings last week, and the purpose of us doing the performance audit was so that we could make better informed decisions for the budget process. And so, I told Butch, whether it's his opinion or whether it's Malik's report, I'd like to have some type of report before we get into our budget voting. So if you could get those to us, and then I don't know if council wants to meet in some type of exec session to discuss those, if we want to put it on a future work session agenda for Butch to give us, or.
Karen is going to be working on our next budget meeting, joint budget meeting with department heads. I'll have that to you before that meeting, and maybe an executive session after our open session.
And it's during that same meeting?
Yes.
Fine. I see a lot of faces that anybody would.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
Fine, me.
Is the report with you right now, Butch?
Excuse me?
Is the report handy?
I can deliver that to you. It will change. There'll be some, I think, some clarity there. So I'll be glad to send that out to you.
I'd just rather wait on one that's gonna be the one we're gonna use, not one that's gonna change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me personally. I mean, if Mike wants it, that's fine, but I'd rather have the finished product than have to.
How far away is the
worry about
finished product, you think?
Like I said, you'll have it, right now, we're looking at, you'll get an email from Karen about next week. I think we were looking at Thursday from 5 to 7. So you'll have it.
5 o'clock's killing me.
It is.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
You saw it today, I mean, and I ran, and
Let's,
it was 5:20,
let's just, if you can work that out with Karen, we're trying to, we'll work with everybody's schedule.
Economic development update, Eric?
Mayor, council. City manager asked me to give you a copy. This is the kind of the capstone project that Ted's been putting together all year for a Snellville Business Incubator. And so he put this kind of treatise together. And then this is one of the things we engaged Ted in the previous year was because he wanted to do his option paper on incubator development. And so he's also turned that in some pieces of this for a grade. I was just going to take a minute out of it. There's a lot here, and if you'd like to take time to discuss it, we can. But if you'll turn to where I put the blue tab in each section, just to give you a quick overview of a couple of pieces and say a couple of things about incubators. The first one there talks about what an incubator is. I wanted to say an incubator is not just low-cost space. I shouldn't say a lot, but there are a number of incubator folks that just get into the idea that if we have a building and we subsidize the space and we provide low-cost lease and rents for a business, that's an incubator. That is not an incubator. That might be part of what an incubator offers, or a scaled-up rent or a stepped-up rent. But really the key to an incubator is the services that are provided through that incubator. And we've been working hard as an economic development and with the city to build those services first, so that whether we go from what I call a virtual incubator to an actual bricks and mortar incubator is the longer consideration. But really what we've been working on is building a full-fledged virtual incubator. And so you've seen the pieces of that develop and come to fruition over the last year. The Snellville Business Toolbox, the mentoring program, the peer advisory boards, making sure as many services as we could provide to businesses are in place. Because when you take those into a building, then you've got a much more robust and a much more valuable opportunity for those businesses to engage in, rather than just a low-cost rent. If all you do is buy a building and lower the rent, you're really just competing with other leasee and leaseors out there, And that is something that is discussed sometimes about whether you really want to get into that arena or not. We don't want to impact it when we can. So if you look there at business incubators, nurture business development, the common goals are to create jobs in the community, and retain businesses in the community, diversify the business, the local economy. There's 4 listed there. Of course, the community's entrepreneur climate, obviously it impacts that. But really what we're concerned about is jobs and retaining those jobs in the community and broadening our economic base as a community. If you look at the next slide, it says what services do they provide. You can see a listing there of typical business services. Many of those we are working with or have built relationships with. For example, the commercial kitchen space. That is something that several businesses, as we've been doing our mentoring and peer stuff, has come up. And we have a very informal discussion with a kitchen incubator that's up toward Kennesaw that has been working with some of those folks and helping them step through some of those things. Of course, Kennesaw is a long way to go, but it is a fully functioning kitchen incubator up there, and it does have some good resources it's been able to provide to some of our business folks here. You can see some of the other ones there, intellectual property, marketing, consulting, and so forth. And then just the final graph on those that I'll point out is while this is not a given, it is kind of an average or information for every dollar of public investment in incubator. There's often around a $30 local tax revenue increase that's associated with it as the businesses grow and develop in the community. So I'd be glad to chat through this with anybody. Remember, this is a sample or a demonstration document. There's nothing in here that's hard and fast about, especially I mentioned that because last June we did a little architects contest with some of the young architects. We just positioned the old Ryan's building as a potential kind of opportunity. We had several things in mind when we did that. One was I was looking for something in the town center, just because that's where I think this incubator should occur to support businesses here too. If we used a building similar to that one or any other one, we could use it as a demonstration project to show business owners what we want downtown businesses to look like as the town redevelops. By pulling it up to the street, rehabbing an old business. We're not necessarily talking about demolishing businesses. In this case, it looks at how can we re-facade it and repurpose the building for something else. So there are opportunities there. So I say that all to say, don't think because there's examples in here necessarily we landed on one that we want to use. Really, this document is an example document of how to pull an incubator together and some other concepts that we wanted to have council consider as we got to this point. So I'll stop there a minute. Any just questions right at that point? I just have a few last details to mention. There's a lot here, and I know you'll want to take it in.
There is a lot there. Ted put a lot of work into it, and there's a lot of good information. Go ahead.
For information purposes, tomorrow night is our second quarterly Snellville Entrepreneur Summit. We currently have 109 registrants for that event. It's been interesting to note that we have a small block of actually doctors that have signed up for this one. I'm not sure what that's all about. When they come, I'm going to ask them. But it was interesting to see that we are getting a larger kind of grouping of professional services involved in that process, which speaks to the value of what we're delivering in that those doctors actually find it is valuable time to come and participate, give up an evening. The last thing to mention is the Entrepreneur Shark Tanks, Entrepreneur Alliance Shark Tanks. I didn't give you a piece of paper with this, but I can. May 1st, Wednesday, actually I need to change this from 11 to 1:30 because the business numbers have gone up. But South Gwinnett High School will present on May 1st at Wednesday. From 11 to 1:30, they have 8 student businesses that will be pitching to the Shark Tank. On May 2nd, Thursday, from 3 to 5 p.m., the Brookwood students will be here with 5 businesses pitching into the Shark Tank for those folks to decide. And then on May 8th, the jury out of each of those on May 1st and May 2nd will be picking the 2 best business pitches. And on May 8th, 2 business pitches from South Gwinnett and 2 business pitches from Brookwood will go head to head, and the jury will be tagged with identifying the best entrepreneur business concept from a student in Snellville under our Entrepreneur Alliance.
You will not be in the community room on that Friday then?
That is correct. We will be there on Wednesday and Thursday and then the following Wednesday.
We wanted to set up early for the breakfast, so I thought you were going to be in that.
I think Karen has these dates, but I'll confirm it with
May 8th was the final.
May 8th is the best of the best pitches. From 3 to 5 o'clock. community is invited. I think I mentioned this previously, but we'd like the community to come the last 30 to 45 minutes so they can participate in kind of the celebration with the students of the awards and so forth that will be made. Thank you, Mayor.
LCI update.
The last time we talked about lighting, the photometric plan has been submitted to DOT. I appreciate John's help working with the vendor on that. It's being reviewed. AMEC is working with a subcontractor for the installation plans, so that should be the last obstacle that we have to overcome before we get to advertising the bid.
Questions on the LCI? That concludes our business.